Imagine, you're just sitting there holding your phone. You've just typed out a thought, maybe some kind of strong opinion on a trending news story.
Right.
Your thumb hovers over the screen, you tap post.
Yeah.
And, for most of us, the absolute worst case scenario that follows is what? A few angry replies.
Yeah, maybe losing a couple of followers. Or just the deafening sound of crickets.
Exactly. The stakes for the average person are pretty contained.
Right. I mean, you might bruise your ego or get dragged into a messy comment section, but your actual daily life, like your ability to turn on the lights or buy groceries or even just call your family, that all remains completely uninterrupted.
Contained is the perfect word for that. But I want you to imagine a drastically different scenario today. Imagine you tap that exact same send button, and within moments, your entire country's digital infrastructure comes under fire.
Oh, wow.
Government networks just start crashing. Communications begin to go dark. The invisible backbone of your nation is suddenly under siege, and it's all because of a few characters typed on the screen.
We are talking about, well, the ultimate butterfly effect here. A tiny ripple in cyberspace that triggers this immediate, tangible tsunami of digital retaliation across an entire nation.
Welcome to the reality of the modern geopolitical landscape. Today we are taking a deep dive into an incredibly revealing excerpt from recent global events, centering on statements made by General Muhoozi Kainerugaba of Uganda.
Right.
Our mission for this deep dive is to examine how a single public statement about international alliances can trigger immediate, nationwide digital retaliation, and what that actually means for the modern battlefield. So, okay, let's unpack this.
To truly understand the modern world, we have to recognize that the buffer zone between a digital statement and a physical national security consequence it's essentially vanished.
Totally. And the spark that ignited this specific crisis is just striking in its simplicity. Looking at the general statements, Muhoozi Kainerugaba publicly tweeted his support for Israel. And almost immediately following this statement, his country, Uganda, experienced a massive wave of severe cyber attacks. The quote we have from him is very direct. He states, quote, "After my tweets the other day in support of Israel, our country experienced numerous cyber attacks."
Right, and before we delve into the mechanics of those attacks and the resulting fallout, I need to state something explicitly for you, the listener.
Yeah, very important point here.
In this deep dive, we are not taking any position on the geopolitical conflict regarding Israel, nor the domestic politics of Uganda.
Exactly.
Our focus today is strictly analytical. We're impartial observers analyzing the provided statements to understand the immediate, tangible reaction to a politically charged public post. We are exploring the how and the why of the digital response.
Right, we're looking purely at the mechanics of action and reaction, and the sheer speed of that reaction is just jarring.
What's fascinating here is the velocity of the digital blowback. Because historically, diplomatic fallout took days, right, or weeks or even months to materialize.
Yeah, you'd have ambassadors summoned or formal letters of protest being drafted.
Exactly. But today, modern political speech has immediate borderless consequences. The retaliation just arrives at the speed of light through fiber optic cables.
It's like yelling something provocative in a crowded, tense room, but instead of people yelling back, the lights suddenly cut out, the doors lock, and the whole environment turns hostile before you can even take a breath.
That's a great analogy.
But I have to push back a little here, or at least play devil's advocate for a second. Are we absolutely certain these attacks are a direct consequence of the tweet? I mean, networks get probed and scanned by automated bots all day, every day.
They do, yeah.
So how do we know this isn't just a perceived correlation in the heat of the moment?
Well, that is the first question any cybersecurity analyst asks when a crisis hits. Causation versus correlation is basically the holy grail of threat intelligence. And you're right, national networks do face low-level automated attacks constantly. However, when analysts look at incidents like the one described by General Muhoozi, they aren't just looking at the mere presence of an attack, they're measuring volume, sophistication, and timing.
Okay.
So if a nation's infrastructure typically experiences a baseline level of anomalous traffic, and then within hours of a major geopolitical statement, that traffic spikes by 10,000%.
No.
And it's targeting highly specific critical nodes, well, the statistical probability of it being a random coincidence just drops to near zero.
So the sudden coordinated escalation is the fingerprint. It transitions from everyday background noise to this targeted symphony of disruption.
Exactly. The attackers are sending a clear, undeniable message tied directly to the original statement.
Okay, so if an attack of this magnitude paralyzes a country's backbone, we have to look at what's actually in the crosshairs. Because, according to Muhoozi, shortly after those tweets, Uganda began experiencing numerous cyber attacks, with potential attempts to disrupt government systems, target national infrastructure, and interfere with digital communications.
And we really need to break down the severity of those targets, because a phrase like national infrastructure can sound kind of abstract, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like just a buzzword.
Right. But we aren't just talking about defacing a government PR website or changing a politician's Wikipedia page. Striking infrastructure is fundamentally about sowing chaos and demonstrating profound vulnerability to the entire populace.
Let's make this concrete for the listener then. You mentioned striking infrastructure and paralyzing the backbone. But how does a line of malicious code actually turn off a physical water pump or a city's traffic light?
Well, that bridge between the digital and the physical is managed by something called SCADA systems, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition.
SCADA.
Think of SCADA as the digital brain connected to physical muscles. A computer sends a signal to a physical valve telling it to open or close. It tells a turbine in a power plant how fast to spin.
Oh, I see.
So if hackers breach that network and send a command to open all the water valves at once, pipes literally physically burst. If they scramble the commands to a power grid, they can plunge entire cities into darkness.
Man, that transforms a political dispute into an immediate physical crisis for millions of people who might not even have a social media account.
Exactly.
And the reports also mention interfering with digital communications and government systems. That has to cascade down to the average citizen's daily routine, right? Like banking or hospital networks.
Without a doubt. Consider the banking sector, for example. Modern finance relies entirely on APIs to function.
Okay, for someone who isn't a software developer, what exactly is an API in this context?
So think of an API like a digital waiter in a restaurant. You, the customer, are the credit card terminal at the grocery store. The kitchen is the bank's central server.
Okay, tracking with you.
You can't just walk into the kitchen and take the food. You give your order, your payment request, to the waiter, the API. The waiter goes to the bank, gets the approval, and brings it back to the terminal so your transaction goes through.
Right.
If a cyber attack disrupts or floods those APIs, the waiter trips. The kitchen might be totally fine, the terminal might be fine, but the communication bridge is just blown up.
So a citizen goes to buy groceries and their card is declined. Not because they don't have money, but because an unseen adversary thousands of miles away decided to target their country's digital waiter.
Exactly. It is psychological warfare executed through technological means. By disrupting the daily, frictionless operations of society, the attackers create this localized sense of panic and helplessness.
They're showing the populace that their leadership's statements have real, painful consequences for the everyday person.
Yes, it's a method of eroding trust in the government from the inside out.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because pulling off an attack that overwhelms a nation's SCADA systems and banking APIs takes massive resources. I mean, this isn't a teenager in a basement guessing password 123.
No, absolutely not.
So who actually has the funding and the technology to pull the plug on a nation?
Well, attacks of this scale require extreme organization, vast resources, and deep technical capability. When we look at the landscape of modern cyber warfare, we can break down the potential culprits into three main categories. We're looking at organized hacker groups, politically motivated actors, and state-backed operations.
I want to break down those three categories because they sound similar on the surface, but their motivations and capabilities have to be vastly different.
Very different.
Let's start with politically motivated actors. Those are often called hacktivists, right?
Yeah, hacktivists.
Yeah.
And they are driven by ideology. They might not have the massive billion-dollar funding of a government military branch, but they have numbers, passion, and crowdsourced intelligence. They organize on anonymous forums. They strike to make a point, to punish, or to draw attention to a specific cause. They often use brute force tactics like DDoS attacks, which essentially involves flooding a website with so much fake traffic that it just collapses under the weight.
Got it. Then you have organized hacker groups, which operate more like, what, digital cartels?
Pretty much. These are highly skilled, profit-driven syndicates. Historically, they operate for financial gain using ransomware, locking up a hospital's data and demanding millions to unlock it.
Right. We see that in the news all the time.
But in recent years, we've seen these cartels act as cyber mercenaries. A nation or a wealthy ideological group might quietly contract an organized hacker syndicate to launch an attack, giving the actual sponsor plausible deniability.
Oh, wow. Which brings us to the heavyweight category, the apex predators of the digital world. State-backed operations.
Yes, we call these advanced persistent threats, or APTs.
APTs.
These are highly funded, highly trained cyber warfare divisions of foreign military and intelligence services. They don't just flood websites. They have the capability to write entirely custom malware. They discover and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities.
Let's pause on that term. A zero-day vulnerability. Why is that such a devastating weapon in an APT's arsenal?
So imagine a massive, highly secure bank vault. The software developers built it, locked it, and gave the government the only key. But the developers accidentally left a tiny, invisible backdoor in the vault's blueprints that even they don't know about. An APT finds that backdoor. It's called a zero-day because the software creator has had 0 days to patch or fix the flaw.
I get it.
The attackers basically have an invisible lockpick. They can slip into the network, plant malicious code, and wait for months or even years before pulling the trigger.
It's like trying to solve a high-stakes heist, but the physical evidence keeps shifting. You have no idea if the bank robbers are a gang of rogue idealists, hired mercenaries, or another country's elite special ops team.
And this raises an important question. How do you prove who did it? The science of attribution, definitively proving who pulled the digital trigger, is a forensic nightmare.
Yeah, bad.
In cyberspace, the bank robbers can easily make it look like someone else entirely committed the crime.
But how do they do that mechanically? Like, if everything leaves a digital footprint, how do you hide an attack that takes down a power grid?
They obscure their tracks using proxy servers and IP spoofing. An IP address is essentially your computer's return address on a digital envelope.
Right.
Spoofing is simply writing someone else's address on that envelope. And proxy servers take it a step further. Instead of sending the attack directly from their computer to Uganda, the attackers route their malicious signal through a compromised server in Eastern Europe, which bounces to a data center in Asia, which hops over to a server in Brazil, and then finally strikes the target.
They launder their digital signal the way a cartel launders money.
Precisely. And they employ false flags. A highly sophisticated state-backed APT might deliberately leave comments written in Cyrillic, Mandarin, or Spanish inside their malicious code.
Oh, wow. Just to throw people off.
Exactly. They might use the same specific hacking tools known to be used by an amateur hacktivist group. When the defending country's analysts tear apart the malware, they find all these breadcrumbs pointing in the wrong direction.
That forensic nightmare makes General Muhoozi's response to this crisis incredibly ambitious.
It really does.
Because the general stated, quote, "We shall investigate all of them. We will take strong action against those who sent and supported those attacks," end quote. I mean, investigating is one thing, but vowing strong action against an invisible enemy feels like walking into a minefield blindfolded.
It is a very bold statement of deterrence, but from a purely analytical, logistical perspective, it introduces massive hurdles. Let's look at the first, taking strong action against those who sent the attacks.
Right, the proxy server issue.
Exactly. As we just discussed, tracing the signal back to its true origin is incredibly complex. If the final hop of the attack came from an IP address in Brazil, that doesn't mean the attacker is Brazilian.
So if a nation retaliates against that server in Brazil, they are hitting an innocent bystander whose equipment was just hijacked for the ride. You risk violating the sovereignty of a country that had absolutely no idea it was even involved.
You open a massive diplomatic rift, and then, well, there's the second part of his statement, which is perhaps even more legally and ethically complex, taking strong action against those who supported those attacks.
What does support even mean in the context of a borderless, decentralized cyber attack?
That is the million-dollar question in international cyber law right now. And frankly, there is no clear answer. The ambiguity of the word supported is vast.
Right.
Does support mean a foreign government that turned a blind eye while hackers operated within their physical borders? Does it mean a decentralized network of individuals who simply cheered on the hackers and amplified their message on social media?
Yeah, where is the line?
Yeah. What about the developers who wrote the open source code that the attackers eventually modified to use as a weapon?
Man, retaliating based on that kind of ambiguity is dangerous. If a country aggressively hits back at a suspected supporter based on a few digital breadcrumbs, they risk triggering a massive escalation loop. Where does a digital war actually end if neither side agrees on who fired the first shot?
The digital escalation ladder is a terrifying prospect. In a physical, kinetic war, a missile strike is undeniable. The origin is usually clear, and the physical damage is measurable. But digital retaliation operates in the shadows.
Right.
Let's say Nation A believes Nation B supported a cyber attack. Nation A retaliates by quietly deploying malware to shut down Nation B's financial sector.
But Nation B likely won't view that as retaliation. Since they might deny involvement in the first attack, they will view the strike on their financial sector as an unprovoked act of war.
Exactly the danger. So Nation B hits back harder. Instead of just disrupting a website, they unleash wiper malware across Nation A's healthcare systems.
Let me just clarify that term for our listeners. We hear about ransomware a lot, where hackers lock up files and demand money. How is wiper malware different mechanically?
If ransomware is putting a heavy padlock on your filing cabinet and demanding money for the key, wiper malware is throwing that filing cabinet into an industrial incinerator.
Oh, wow.
There is no ransom. There is no decryption key. The sole purpose of wiper malware is to permanently destroy data and render the hardware completely useless. It is a weapon of pure destruction.
So Nation B uses a digital shredder on Nation A's hospitals. The cycle just accelerates.
It spirals rapidly. And because there are no universally agreed upon rules of engagement or Geneva Conventions specifically governing the granular details of cyber warfare, there are no built-in diplomatic circuit breakers to stop the escalation.
Right, no official red lines.
It relies entirely on the technical restraint of the actors involved. Furthermore, for a country like Uganda facing down a potential APT, the asymmetry is staggering. If a nation doesn't have an equally sophisticated offensive cyber command, how do they take strong action against a ghost?
They're forced to either absorb the blow or escalate into physical, real-world, diplomatic, or military domains, which carries catastrophic risks of its own.
Yeah.
Pulling the lens back from this specific incident in Uganda to the overarching, chilling reality of our modern world. This brings us to the ultimate takeaway from the statements we are analyzing. Cyber warfare is the new battlefield, and this reality fundamentally changes how we view global security.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are witnessing a permanent shift in how human conflict is waged. For centuries, a nation's security was largely defined by its physical geography. Oceans, mountain ranges, standing armies stationed at borders, those were the primary lines of defense.
Sure.
But in the digital age, oceans offer zero protection. Physical borders are entirely porous to malicious code.
So a hacker sitting in a cafe a continent away can cause more immediate infrastructural damage to a capital city than a battalion of tanks sitting right on its border.
Exactly. And what this incident with General Muhoozi highlights so starkly is how deeply intertwined social media, public discourse, and national security have become. A platform originally designed for sharing thoughts, pictures, and connecting with friends is now a trigger mechanism for